Hi all. Barnet didn't have a great time last night against Wood Green in the North Circular League. We had 3 draw games where we had great opportunities to win, and this was one of them. I was playing on board 3 against Genghis, who I've played before, and that was a very tough game which ended in a draw. In this game I had a very promising position at one point. So let's see what happened. He played d4 and I reverted to my King's Indian defence. I played knight f6. I'm just decreasing the number of lines actually for analysis. Okay, now I'm ready. So knight f3, and after g6 he plays c4, so I fianchetto the bishop, so all standard King's Indian defence theory. He plays bishop e2 as if he's going to play the main line, so I play e5, and after castles I play knight c6. So usually white closes the position here by playing d5, and we have this battle revolving around pawn chains, usually where white's trying to undermine black's pawn chain with a later c5. So for example, the bayonet attack is a very aggressive, direct way of achieving c5 very quickly, but there are slower approaches. But anyway, what he did was kind of release some of the tension in the position by playing d takes e5. I didn't mind this so much. Although there's some immediate tactical pressure here, it's not so bad. And if you consider that white's pawns on c4 and e4, they weaken that d4 square, it simplifies the strategy for me that I really want to put the pressure on the dark squares later. He plays bishop g5, and there are some annoying threats like queen takes, rook takes, and then knight d5, or bishop takes knight d5. But the thing is, I find a good move here where my queen isn't being embarrassed. Let's say I did play queen e7 just to see the dangers in the position. Knight d5 is pretty horrible. If the queen's forced to go back, white has a big advantage. So obviously queen e7 is silly. But let's say we put the queen on e8, then here knight d5, according to Ribka, is a good advantage for white, 0.32, because c7 is weak. So there are some dangers here to look out for, and I don't really want to give white the opportunity to do c takes d. That reminds me of a bad south end game where white has then big pressure on the c file, bearing down on c7. So you've got to avoid these kind of possibilities. After knight d4, rook c1, advantage to white, according to Ribka. And this is all from a very, very modest way of playing it, with just d takes e5, which isn't theoretical. So one has to be careful here as black. Something like bishop d7, trying to avoid the queen exchange. Again, knight d5 is an annoying move. So what can black do here? H6 is now not possible because knight takes f6, followed by bishop takes h6, I would have assumed. But actually bishop f6 is winning a piece here because the queen is now attacking that d7 bishop. So queen takes d7, and the queen can come out if in any way or take on c7. So basically in this position there's limited opportunities to do something. So what I did was just play queen takes d1, and my opponent took, and now to weaken that d4 square I just played bishop g4, and I wasn't concerned here with knight d5 now because I've made that c8 square vacant for the rook to protect c7. So for example, if knight d5, not only that though, there's another feature here. After knight takes e4, he would end up losing a piece if he took on c7, or so I thought, because there's a constant threat now of bishop takes and knight takes. So say knight takes c7, rook a8, and white's losing a piece. If the knight moves back, bishop takes, knight takes g5. So by vacating that c8 square, not only am I putting pressure on that d4 square to try and remove this defensive knight, but rook c8 is now possible. And also, furthermore, bishop takes f6, bishop takes knight d5 is also harmless, because here bishop d8. So I'm still protecting e5. There's no serious threat here. So I thought I'd solved most of my problems simply by taking on d1, my queen, and playing this bishop g4. A lot of the problems are diminishing. And now he plays knight d2, seemingly passive move, but annoyingly it does keep these knights on the board, which are more dangerous than this light square bishop, because this light square bishop is generally hemmed in by these pawns. So I was slightly concerned still positionally, but the worst of my issues were over. I took on e2, and now here I did consider knight d4, but I didn't want to occupy that square with a piece or pawn. But Rybka seems to think that's a way to have a dead equal position by playing knight d4 here. I wanted to keep the pressure going on d4 and maybe encourage the opponent to lose his dark square bishop, so that I have more positional control over that square later. So I played actually h6, and to my surprise he took on f6. Let's see if he had moved the bishop back to e3, rook fd8, black slightly better according to Rybka here. It's a very nice position to have from the opening, but he took on f6, and after knight b3 there seems to be some annoying knight moves now, like knight c5 on the cards, and I don't really want to play b6, because then I'll be giving him a target with c5 and then later rook c1, and you know, my c file will be under pressure. So what I did here is actually provoke him if he wanted to play knight c5 to take b7, because I've always got rook b8 and then taking on b2. So I just played simply bishop g5. The other point about bishop g5 is I didn't, want to leave it as a target on, say, e7, because knight c3 to d5 would win a tempo if that bishop was left on e7. And also it's liberating that f pawn if I ever want to play f5, which turned out to be quite useful, it seems, later on. So first I have to defend that c7 pawn. It seems these very small issues in this game from this very modest way that white had played the opening, but they need to be taken care of. How which pawns you can afford to defend or not. So here he played rook ad1, and Rybka does give, it's 0.18 still for white. So despite white playing this in such a modest way, this opening, avoiding the main line of the king's engine, there's still a tiny little bit of pressure. But I played knight b8, and I was kind of relieved that I had this resource.